I think the celebration of Christmas has changed in the short span of my own lifetime. Only 20 years ago, before World War II, it seemed that Christmas was still being celebrated with a naive and joyous innocence. Whereas today, you hear the expression, Christmas comes once a year, like taxes. Well, Christmas was observed all out in my Catholic French Canadian environment in the 1930s. Well, at first I was too young to go to midnight mass, but that was the real big event we hoped to grow up to. Well, till then, we'd stay in our beds, pretending to be asleep, till we heard the parents leaving for midnight mass, and then we'd come down, sneak a look at our toys, touching them, putting them back in place, rush up again in the dark in gleeful pajamas, tittering when we heard them come back again. Usually with a big gang of friends for the open house party. When we were old enough, it was thrilling to be allowed to stay up late on Christmas Eve, put on best suits, dresses, and overshoes, and earmuffs, and walk with the adults through crunching dry snow to the bell-ringing church. Parties of people laughing down the street, bright, throbbing stars of New England winter bending over rooftops, sometimes causing long rows of icicles to shimmer as we passed. Well, near to the church, you could hear the opening choruses of Bach being sung by child choirs, mingled with grown-up choirs, usually led by a tenor who inspired laughter more than anything else. But from the wide open door of the church poured golden light, and inside little girls were in line for their trumpet choruses caroling Handel. Well, my favorite object in the church was the statue of the saint holding little Jesus in his arms. This was the statue of Saint Antoine de Padua. I always thought it was Saint Joseph. My eyes always strayed to his statue. He who now with demure plaster countenance, holding the insubstantial child, with a face too small, a body too doll-like, supporting in mid-air lightly against his mysterious infinite breast. The sun! It's Saint Joseph, a humble, self-admitting, truthful saint, with none of the vain freneticisms of the martyrs, a saint without glory, guilt, accomplishment, or Franciscan charm, a self-effacing grave and demure ghost in the arcades of Christendom. He who knew the desert stars and spat with the wise men at the back of the barn, a ranger of the manger, old hobo saint of haylofts and camel trails. My secret friend! And now at midnight mass, I gloried proudly at his new opportunity at the front of the church, standing over his family in the manger, where all eyes were turned. Well, after mass, the open house was on. Gangs would troop back home or other houses. Well, St. Vincent de Paul would appear at these open house parties, collecting old clothes and food for the poor. Never turned down a glass of sweet red wine, and even join in singing in the kitchen. They always sang an old canticle of their own before leaving. Oh, the Christmas trees are always huge in those days. And the presents were all laid out and opened at a given consensus. What glee I'd feel to see the clean white shirts of my adults, their flushed faces, the laughter, the bawdy joking around. Oh, meanwhile, the avid women were in the kitchen with aprons over best dresses, getting out the tortillas, pork pies from the icebox. Days of preparation that got into these sumptuous, delicious pies, which are better cold than hot. Also, my mother would make immense ragout de bolet, a pork meatball stew with carrots and potatoes. Mm-mm. And serve that piping hot to crowds of 12 or 15 friends, relatives. Her aluminum drip grind coffee pot made 15 large cups. Oh, also from the icebox came bowls of freshly made, freshly cooled cotons. French Canadian for pâté de maison, spread to go on good, fresh, crusty bread, liberally baked round town at several French bakeries. Well, in the general uproar of the gifts and unwinding of wrappers, it was always a delight for me to step out onto the porch or even go out into the street a ways at 1 o'clock in the morning and listen to the silent hum of heaven, diamond stars, and watch the red and green windows of homes. Consider the trees that seem frozen in sudden devotion, and think over the events of another year past. But before my mind's eye was the St. Joseph of my imagination clasping the darling little child. Well, perhaps too many battles have been fought on Christmas Eve since then. Or maybe I'm wrong, and that little children of 1957 secretly dig Christmas in their little devotional hearts. Jack Kerouac, The New York World Telegram and Sun, December 5th, 1957. I'd also like to thank the Allen Ginsberg Project.